All right, Kennedy, would you mind introducing yourself?
Yeah, no problem. I'm Kennedy Lewis, and I am a counselor currently located here in Victoria.
Great. And jumping right into the questions, are your
Sure.
services specific to certain demographics?
My services are mostly catered to people who are looking to do maybe some longer term therapy.
Mm,
But in terms of demographics, no, not necessarily. I mean, I work with adults.
yeah.
I don't work with minors at this point in time in my private practice. Um, but yeah, I will work with people from all different backgrounds and circumstances, and mostly what I see is people sort of coming in and just looking for support and help through transition, through trauma, relationships, family stuff, which is universal.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And do you
Mhm.
often see clients who have never received counseling? And what would you suggest to someone in that situation?
Hmm. That is a really good question.
Mhm.
Yes, I do quite often actually have people reach out to me who have never had counseling before. And normally something has happened to
Mhm.
motivate them to reach out for help. And what I talk to my potential clients about, especially when I'm doing consults, because I do 30-minute free consults so that people can talk to me before they sort of commit to paying for a session. um, and one of the biggest things that I think when it comes to choosing a counselor is that the relationship you build is really, really important. It provides the container for all of the work you're going to do, and you've got to feel like you can build trust with that person and feel safe to kind of open up and do the emotional work that's needed. So I would definitely suggest to people who have never had counseling before to kind of shop around
Mm,
if they can. And when you go to look for profiles online, because that's how most people find counselors is by doing a Google search or whatever it happens to be. If they do consults, do a consult, ask them questions, like just see how it actually feels and what your gut tells you about working with that person, and if it feels good, and trust your gut feeling about that person, because not all counselors are going to be a fit for all clients, and that's totally okay. So I really encourage people to do that.
yeah, for
And
sure.
yeah.
And kind of building off that question, what would you
Hmm.
suggest to someone who is new to counseling and trying to find a service that works for them?
I mean, I would still suggest shopping around,
Hmm.
and gathering information about what that service does. And the internet's a tricky thing. Doing a Google search is a tricky thing because you can go onto a website and like read and say, oh yeah, this seems like it would be a good fit for me. But how that actually translate again into that gut feeling, how you feel, um, can be different for everyone. So yeah, I would encourage doing searches, gathering information, and again, reaching out and actually interacting with someone to see if it's going to be, what you're looking for before you invest time, money,
Hmm.
your resources into that experience. And if you have friends or family that you trust too, who maybe have had counseling before, ask them what their experiences were like, maybe
That's some really great advice.
as well.
Yeah. So
Thanks.
we're just moving into more general questions. So
Sure.
could you tell us a bit about yourself and your background?
Absolutely. So I did my master's degree in counseling at UVic.
Mm-hmm.
I also did my undergrad in psychology at UVic. So I feel like this has become now an advertisement for UVic's programs. I graduated from my master's degree in 2019, and like early January 2019. And what was really cool about that program at that time was that I came out of that with a trauma focus. It
Mm.
was a very trauma focused program, and through my internships as well, that was all trauma focused as well. So that's what my training is in
Mm.
trauma counseling. Currently, right now, I actually work 3 different jobs.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I know. Sometimes it feels like a couple too many, but that's okay. I love every single minute of it. So I'm actually working at an agency in town here that works with families. So I do individual couples counseling and group counseling with people who are kind of at that intersection of domestic violence and trauma. And then I have my private practice, which I think is sort of why you folks reached out to me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I have my private practice that does individual counseling, couples counseling as well for adults. And then I also run a business called Extraordinary Workers, and that is focused on trauma counseling specifically for frontline and support workers working in the shelters, supported housing sites, because that's what I did before I became a counselor.
Yeah, that's great. Definitely a resource
Yes.
that is needed for sure.
Yeah, they gotta.
That kind of
That's
answered the next question about what your services do. So I'll move right into the next one.
Sure.
What have you adapted due to the pandemic with providing your services?
Oh my goodness. As you can you can even hear like that sort of exhale of breath there. Yeah, I mean, I used to work in person.
Yeah.
You and I probably, pre-pandemic would have been sitting in the same room together, maybe.
Yeah, we probably would have.
Doing this.
Yeah.
Because trauma counseling in particular, it's really important to be able to sort of, read the nervous system and what's going on with someone. And there's little things you pick up, someone's tapping their foot, someone's kind of wringing their fingers. And so moving online has been the biggest transition, sort of working from home, and engaging with people in this medium has been huge. Some of my clients love it and have found it actually really helpful, especially if they've got kids at home. They don't have to leave their home. There's some convenience in that. And some people are sort of itching to get back in person. So it's been a transition for all of us, and really trying to translate that in-person experience online as well. So, I've got a really good microphone, for example. I try to, make sure I've got really good quality video and internet so that, people can at least experience this as close to in person. So yeah, those have probably been the biggest transitions, just not working in my office.
Yeah, just a quick follow-up to that. How do you were talking a bit about before about finding a right fit as a counselor. Do you think that has affected the way you can connect with a counselor online?
Like in terms of searching someone out?
Yeah, searching someone out, getting a good feel for someone.
Yeah. I do a lot of phone consults. It's not quite the same as being able to actually see and interact with someone, at least, again, as close to in person as possible. Again, I would recommend that people ask, like if they want to see their counselor and they want to, in a consult, ask for a Zoom. Or whatever video medium anyone's using. I say that because we're using Zoom right now, but ask to be able to sort of see and interact with your counselor, because it's so much more than just hearing them speak, right? It's how they carry themselves. It's just how you feel with them. So advocate for what you feel like you want and need. If you want to see that counselor, go for it. Ask for it.
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
And if they don't offer you that, or if they can't, then that might be an indication that maybe that's not a good fit for you.
Oh, yeah. And you kind of touched on this a bit before, but are your services specific to any demographics or diagnoses?
Not necessarily. Again, the only group that I don't work with right now is minors, people under the age of 19. But it's all sort of case by case. There aren't any specific diagnoses that I can think of. I've worked with such a wide variety of people, and a diagnosis typically, or sometimes isn't an indication of what someone is actually wanting to work on. And so again, sort of case by case, I might ask if someone has this very particular diagnosis, if they're managing that well, in terms of maybe there's medication involved, maybe there's other services involved. And if they say, yeah, that's actually managed really well, I would really actually like to work on my trauma over here. I'd be like, all right, cool. So case by case. And I always ask clients and sort of work with the person that's interacting with me.
That's great. Yeah.
Yeah.
And what advice can you offer someone who is trying to support friends or family with a mental health condition?
Yeah, that's a very good question. That's also a very big question. So the very first thing that I would say to someone who's supporting someone right now is, like, you're doing enough. Just by being willing to offer that support, being there is huge. It's okay to take care of yourself as well. Actually, it's incredibly important, and to have boundaries and to make sure that you are able to stay safe yourself and care for yourself. Because in a support role, it can be really challenging. Sometimes we can really forget about ourselves. And if someone that we know or love is struggling, I'm going to go a little bit sort of dramatic and equate it to like someone's drowning in the water. You're not going to jump in and splash around beside them. You got to stay rooted and grounded, to be able to sort of throw them a lifeline and kind of pull them in. So really important to take care of yourself. And the only thing that we can really do is offer people company with their feelings, to know that they're not alone. We can't and sort of shouldn't take someone's emotions on as our own, because they need to deal with those themselves. And absolutely, if you're in a support position, get supports yourself. One of the best resources in town for that is Mental Health Recovery Partners. They offer services specifically for people who are supporting someone with a mental illness or someone who's really struggling. So yeah, support yourself.
That's fantastic. And that kind of leads into our next question about what coping strategies or self-care tips can you share with our followers?
Oh yeah, those words, self-care. Yeah, I figured they would come up at some point.
Oh, they always do.
Right? Yeah. I would say just try your best. Self-care is not a competition. I feel like sometimes there can be, especially on like social media and stuff, sometimes there can be this idea that like, you need to be the best at self-care. There's days where you're not going to be, and that's okay. So be gentle with yourself. I would say also keep it simple. Like really focus, and if any of my clients are watching this, they're probably like, yeah, we hear this all the time from Kennedy, which is, try to focus on comfort and soothing activities. We have typically really overdeveloped threat systems, and, things like watching the news and stuff like that will bring that threat system online. And there's so many things that stress us out, but we can really forget or have an underdeveloped self-soothing system. So anything that brings you comfort, no matter how small, if it's just a cup of tea at the end of the day or whatever, those things are incredibly important. So keep it simple, and be willing to experiment. Because right now, what I've been hearing a lot of from my clients, and I'm feeling this myself, is that a lot of services or ways that we normally cope might not be available to us because of, this little pandemic thing that we're dealing with right now. So experiment, try some new things, maybe that you wouldn't think of before.
Yeah, those are some great tips for everyone to use. Yeah, and is there anything else you'd like to add to conclude?
I think, like, I know things are tough right now and weird. Like, I'm right there with you. I really am. But there is still support available. So if you're feeling like you need support, like, reach out. I know it can be difficult to do that, but reach out, start taking those steps. And you never know kind of what's going to come of that. And there's no harm in trying.
Well, that's so great. Thank you so much, Kennedy, for joining us today.
Of course. Thank you.